Joining us now, former Assistant Director of the FBI, James Kallstrom. He served nearly 30 years with the FBI. Jim, good to have you here.
Good to be here.
This is an extraordinary hearing in which we found out the former director confessing that he was leaking information to the New York Times through a conduit, if you will, a Columbia law professor by the name of Daniel Richman. And at the same time, portraying himself as a weak, frankly, cowardly leader of the most storied law enforcement agency in this country's history. I mean, it was quite a performance. And then we hear the national left-wing media. You would have thought that there was sort of a draw in that, when it was clearly a disaster for James Comey, I think.
Yeah, that fifth column is really strong and getting stronger, and the facts are relevant to them. And, you know, I've talked about Comey for a while now, and I don't do that with any glee. Let me say right up front, the FBI agents are great. They do great jobs. They come to work every day to protect the country. It's the FBI director and people around him that have made these foolish mistakes. You know, and he has to come back, and he's got flutters in his stomach, and he's nervous, and he's got to write this memo. Well, did he write a memo when Bill Clinton met the Attorney General on the tarmac? Apparently not. Right. Did he write a memo when the prosecutive memo came over to the FBI and said you can't call it an investigation, you have to call it a whatever, a happening or a thing, or I forget the word they used.
A matter.
It was crazy, a matter, yeah. And by the way, you can't have a grand jury. Did he write a memo then? I don't think so. At least he didn't say he did. Did he write a memo when the IRS went around this country and picked on, bullied thousands of people that just wanted to, you know, display their democratic joy for things that they wanted to support?
Right.
And were picked on, big time. And because of their political views were you know, interviewed roughly. Yeah,
were basically snuffed out.
And the new FBI director needs to look at the role the FBI played in that. The FBI also interviewed some of these people. Why? Why was the FBI involved? You know, what is going on there? Did he write a memo on any of this thing that was really in violation of the Constitution of the United States? In that, the FBI director has to stand up for the people of the United States, not be a card in some card-playing political game. And that's what Comey did not do.
He did not do that. At the same time, as you say, I mean, he simply rolled over when the Attorney General told him what to do with an investigation. By the way, I think it's fair to say, and tell me if I'm wrong, without a grand jury, that investigation of Clinton's emails is not an investigation.
Exactly. You know, and that's the day, Lou, that he should have stood up and resigned as the FBI director and told the American people why he was resigning. Because you do not conduct an investigation without subpoena power, without compelling testimony, without serving search warrants. There was so much evidence against Hillary Clinton, they didn't even need it. They had trainloads of stuff, and he read that off in that Pross memo, you know, that talked about all that. And then with that silly conclusion that obviously he had conspired with the Attorney General, she said she was going to go with whatever he wanted to do.
Right.
And then he crowned it off with this preposterous statement at the end that he could see that she had no intent, although it wasn't necessary. But she had no intent because she didn't really know what was going on. This woman that flew around in Air Force One for 8 years and was a U.S. Senator and Secretary of State didn't know anything about encrypted technology and why you had to protect the secrets of the United States. Preposterous.
And agents, the reports are that the agents were absolutely repulsed by the director's decision, in many of them near revolt. And at the same time, this FBI director decided that what is a clear criminal enterprise, the Clinton Foundation,
right,
in which it was not even a sophisticated pay-to-play.
Right. And they shut that down. They shut that down too, and there was no memo on that either. I don't believe.
It's
you know, and you just look at the elements of the RICO statute. To me, it was a RICO case.
Well, let me ask you this: when you watch Senator Burr, the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, when you watch Mark Warner, the ranking member, What is your reaction when these men who are playing as if they were in some sort of Broadway play don't even respond to what are the facts? They continue the fiction that this president somehow there's some evidence of a collusion with the Russians, that there's some obstruction of justice.
I was listening on the radio, and it was all BS. I mean, I couldn't tell who were the Republicans, who were the Democrats, other than Marco Rubio, who had some decent questions. But I thought it was disgraceful. There was no question about what I think is going to be one of the biggest scandals ever in the United States, and that's the unmasking of thousands of names. I mean, where did they think the general's name came from?
Right.
You know, and why would they appoint a special counsel who was a lifetime, not lifetime, but at least 2 to 3 decade friend of Jim Comey's? Right. And
I mean, by the way, for whom Comey worked.
Right. I mean, you know.
And why didn't the Republicans object even a little bit?
They didn't say one word. What is going on in Washington? Now, Mueller's he's a good guy. I mean, he might do the right thing, but the FBI has to be looked at. What role did Comey play in the unmasking, if any? I don't know. And his testimony from time to time before the Hill was a little bit, you know, down the road where people wouldn't understand what he was actually talking about. So I think the whole thing was really, really bad judgment.
And the fact that John Koskinen, the head of the IRS, remains in that job is one of the great mysteries of this now 4.5 month.
Can you imagine? And I mean, you can make a strong case that he perjured himself on numerous occasions. You know, I don't have all the facts, but it sure looks that way.
That if he did not destroy evidence, in point of fact, he defied Congress and did not reveal the reality.
And this agency that really got tough with people, good American people, beat them up. There's no excuse for that. The FBI cannot stand idle when things like that happen.
Well, we have a president. You can't even imagine what this situation would be were it not for President Trump being in office.
Thank God that he's there.
Jim Kallstrom, thank God you're here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.